Hey troops, Roxy here and welcome to Roxy Plays Games and welcome to another tutorial video on flying. So yes, we are going to be taking this bird today. This is the LET L-410 Turbolet. So as you can see, it is a twin prop plane, and I kind of put it in the same category as the Grand Caravan stroke the Dornier. Slightly bigger than the Caravan, but it's kind of in that group of planes, roughly that kind of speed, maybe a little bit faster than the Caravan, so probably closer to the Dornier, but it's in that kind of that rough area of planes. And here's a good little bit of news for you guys. It's actually free. So let me just head over to here, and this is where you can pick it up from. So I'll put a link to this in the description below, but it's on the Xplane org forums, and yeah, it's free. So a little bit of a description about it. It's a fantastic plane, and you can obviously click on download this file to download it. Right, so before I get into the meat and bones of this particular video, what I wanted to do is I want to firstly give a shout out and a well done to Donrado and Dylan. So for those of you that was watching my last video, the tutorial on the 172, we did a multiplayer flight last night. They came along for the first flight that they've actually done in a multiplayer flight, and they successfully managed to obviously do their flight plan, take off, land safely. So it's amazing feeling when you get to do that yourself for the first time. So hopefully they felt really proud for themselves, and obviously it makes me happy to know that I've helped out in some way for them to achieve it. They probably would have done it without me anyway, but you know, knowing that I had a little bit of an input, helping them, showing them how to get things set up and all that. So well done to you guys, and anyone else out there, if you are flying the 172s for the first time, or doing your first flight using Sim Toolkit Pro and you have success, stick it in the comments below. It'd be nice to know how many people are actually getting some use out of these videos. Next, I want to do my usual thank yous. So thank you for everyone who has liked my previous videos and subscribed to the channel. It's nice to have you guys on board. It's very humbling, as I always keep saying. And let's get into the video now. One more thing before I do actually crack on with this video. This is probably quite an important part for the multiplayer thing. A couple of guys was having a few issues with seeing the correct type of plane, and what it turned out to be is actually something that I forgot to mention in the video, and it's CSLs. Basically, with multiplayer clients such as VATSIM, FS Cloud, X-Flight Server that we use, you have a CSL folder, and what that essentially does is it links a particular plane model with a picture, if you want to call it a picture, and when you're then in the game and you're looking at someone else's plane, you will see whatever that's linked into. Now, the modeling can either be really, really good or really, really poor. And unfortunately, X-Flight Server, I'm guessing it's just due to the download size of the plugin and everything, it only has a very basic, very few CSL planes within the CSL folder. So 99% of the planes that you're going to see from other players won't be in that folder. Thus, when you look at a plane, it doesn't look right. It looks really, really poor. This file or bunch of files will fix that problem for you, and was actually designed originally for Xquartbox, so for people that are using VATSIM and all those other bits of software. Xquartbox was a tool to allow you to talk to people and talk to ATC, and also for you to be able to see other people's planes through the CSL folder. So all you need to do, alright, let me just bring up these two folders first. This one here. So within your Xplane 11 folder and your resources, you have your plugins. Within your plugins, you would have downloaded the X-Flight Server plugin folder. So you would have had a folder and two files that you should have downloaded. Within this resources you will have a CSL folder, and within that CSL folder you will have two folders, jets and props, and that's all you'll have. Okay, and like I say, it's very limited the amount of plane models that are in there. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to copy and paste the link for this folder. So all you need to do is click in the box, it will highlight it all, and then Control C if you're using a Windows computer will copy. Right, I'm now just going to move that out of the way for a second, and remembering that's now on my clipboard. So all we're going to do is we're going to download this file, and there's a whole load of files within this file. So you need to download all these zip folders. Okay, I would personally recommend downloading all of them, because if you miss something out, something might be missing, and then you might go on a multiplayer flight with someone, the plane looks wrong and you've got no idea why. Okay, for the sakes of it taking a few minutes, just download all of these zip files. So just click on it, download, stick it in wherever you put it. I obviously download to my download folder, and then once you've done all of them, you then should have all of these files. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 zip files. Okay, once you've got all 15 I did say 15, didn't I? Zip files, highlight all of them, right click and extract files. Don't extract here, extract files, because you want to extract it straight into that CSL folder that we've already saved the link for, or copied the link. So depending on what obviously software you use to extract zip files, it might look slightly different from this, but essentially you want to find that root folder. Now you can go through it manually, but because we've already copied that root, all we need to do, that's already highlighted. If we Control V to paste, it will then put that link in. So C program files, x86, Steam apps, common, Xplane 11 resources, plugins, X-Flight server resources, CSL. And you'll see it's highlighted here. Now when you do this, you will only obviously see the jets and the props folder, which you will already have in there from downloading the X-Flight server plugin. All you need to do now is click OK, and then once you click OK, all of these will be unzipped and then will appear in here. Now you may get a couple of pop-ups saying about it overwriting a particular file or program or whatever, not program, folder. Just say yes to all of them, because there'll be some props and jets CSLs that are in there that are basically outdated, and you're going to be updating them. Okay, so let it all update, do its bits and pieces. It may take you a few minutes, and then once that's all done, that is it. You will now have 99% of all the planes that you're going to potentially see, rather than having 1% of the planes that you could potentially see, and the other 99% will just look crap. Alright, that's it. Hopefully, for anyone that has been having any issues with plane models looking garbage, hopefully this will fix your problem. So that's that done. So let's get into the meat and bones of the video, I guess. Our flight. So we're in Sim Toolkit Pro. First thing that you will want to do once you've downloaded your L-410 plane is you want to go into your profile, go into Fleet, manage Fleet and Airframes, scan your Xplane 11 folder. And then once it's done its thinking, just type in 410, and then it will show you the two different types of 410s. Now I have obviously already added this, but we already know if you click on add to fleet, you need to find the airframe. Now it doesn't have the LET 410. This is obviously taken from SimBrief. This is what does all of the flight planning, and unfortunately if it's not in here, you then have to find a plane of a similar type. Now I'm going to be completely honest with you, I'm not a plane expert when it comes to every single plane. Some of these I don't know. I obviously know the Airbuses and the Boeings I know the Cessnas, but some of them I've got no idea what they are. So what I did is I just went for something that was fairly similar, I guess, and decided to go for, I was on an hour in between the Grand Caravan and the Dornier. Okay, but I ended up just going for the Cessna 208, as you can see here. So if I just come back out of here and then come into edit, so I can show you. So you choose your airframe, Cessna 208, choose your airline, give it a registration, but give it a registration for that particular plane. So I obviously went for ROX because that's what I generally do for the first three letters, being Roxy, and then the 410L is the plane model number. Okay, this is only relevant for me so that when I'm doing my flight planning, I know the difference between my Grand Caravan 208 and my 410 Let 410, which is going to become it's under the same airframe. The rest of it obviously you can leave blank, add an image if you've got an image already saved, which I have done here. So here's my plane. So as you can see, it's saying it's a 208, but it's not. It's actually my 410, and that's my registration. I've given it a British Airways airway, and it's currently in, well, it says it's in Liverpool. It's not actually. It's been carted over to Dublin for this particular tutorial. It's done one flight and it's been flying for 1.8 hours so far. Righty, so once we have got our plane in now, we can then go to flight planning, generate a new flight. We're departing from Dublin. I think most of my flights I'm actually going to come out of here or the Isle of Man. It's kind of close and enough time for me to talk about bits and pieces. And it's actually quite a nice airport as well. We're going to Liverpool. The aircraft, so again we can type in 208 because we know that's the airframe, although it's not an actual 208, and it'll show all of the 208. So I've got the 310L, I've got the Grand Caravan, and I've got the 410L, which is what we've added. Or if I just type in 410, then it's going to show me anything that's got the 410, which obviously I've only got the one. We want our flight number, so it's always going to be ROX 333. Not going to bother with call sign, not going to bother with date and time. At the moment, the runway in use, which will probably change by the time I've done all of this, is runway 28, and I'm not sure what runway in use at Liverpool is, but I want to land on 9 just for the ease of not having to go past the airport and come back in on 27. And then we're going to click generate plan. It's going to do its thinking. It's going to do a bit more thinking. I'm going to have a quick sip on my drink. And there we go. So the sim brief downloader pops up because I've got that already set up. Download the files, click close. Definitely advise you, if you haven't got that, go into SimBrief, get in the SimBrief downloader, watch my YouTube video that explains all about that. So essentially, once you click download and it pops up here on Sim Toolkit Pro, you'll get a little pop-up in the bottom right hand corner of your computer. It shows in the toolbar as well, and you can just click on that and then it will then upload it into your plane. So that saves you, well, it actually uploads it into the folder with an Xplane 11, but obviously that folder is linked to your plane. Right, so we've got our flight plan here. So as you can see, we're going to be departing from Dublin on 28, and then we're going to be kind of doing this little bit of a dogleg round and then heading east towards Liverpool. It's got some funky stuff going on here, but I'm not too bothered about that because I can alter the flight plan within the plane. And then we're coming kind of down here West Kirby into runway 9 of Liverpool. So that's the flight plan. We can see it's given us a SID and a star. So the SID is LIFI 5A and the star is TIPO 3A. It does have a transition and an approach, but like I said, I may change the transition depending on how it looks in the plane. So we're going to click fly now. Altitude is going to be flight level 110. So 11,000 feet is what we're going to be flying at, and our block fuel is 632. So we can go on to choose obviously whether you want to do live map 2.0 beta or live map. I believe there's an update. I'm currently on version 5.83. I believe there's an update. It may be even version 6 now, and it changes a few things. I'm not sure exactly. I'm leaving mine as it is now until I'm forced to update it. I'm just going to leave it as it is. It seems to be working fine. So I'm going to go for live map because that's my personal preference. And then I am going to jump back over to Xplane 11. If it'll let me get in there, please and thank you. There we go. And let's get inside. So as you can see, we are in a cold and dark start, and this plane is actually really nicely modelled. Apart from that, like, who on earth designed the seat covers for this plane? Looks like they've done it or copied it from a train. That is disgustingly ugly, but at least you can actually see something. You can't see people obviously, but it's got something there. Okay, but I won't be looking back there very often. It does have an AVI tab, which is fantastic. Now obviously a lot of the functions within the AVI tab is only going to be relevant if you have a Navigraph account. I have one, so I can use a lot of the functions within this. Things like charts will be pulled from your charts that you have when you do your sim brief. If you download a PDF, you can search for airports, so I can go EIDW, and then it gives me all this information, and then I can then go on here and look at departures and find the departure that I'm going out of. So we was going out of LIFI 5A, so LIFI 5A, and then I can see my charts that I'm coming out of here for. However, I'm not going to go through all of this because some of you may not have a Navigraph account, so this is going to be irrelevant anyway. I will do a separate tutorial on charts and explain how all that works for anyone that's interested. But we want to get the plane started. So first thing we are going to do, I'm following a checklist. It's not a concise 100% accurate checklist, but it does the job. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is, obviously you can hotkey for different areas. I have done that already. So as an example, my overhead is number 5. We're going to pop up here, and everything should be in the down position. Okay, if anything's in the apart from these two here, these don't move. Everything else should be in the down position, so just double check that they're all in the down position. And the lights here, you got 3 positions. You got an up for taxi, a middle for off, and then down for landing lights, so just leave them in the middle. And I'm just checking, apart from these two, like I say, these two don't work, and these ones here don't do anything. Everything else is in the down position. Right, so we're going to come up to the top, the power supply area, and we're going to turn our batteries on. So on is up. I'm going to take this fairly slow so you can kind of follow along, have this running in the background while you're in your particular plane. So we want our battery on in the power supply. We're then going to come down to the next level, radio navigation. We're going to turn our intercom on and our nav on. Once you've got both of them on, we want to then go down to our GPS, and we want to verify that we've got our flight plan to be able to upload or manually install the waypoints. Now this uses the Garmin GNS 430. It's very basic. This display down here is just a visual thing. It doesn't actually do anything, unfortunately. I don't know whether there's a add-on where you can obviously replace that, maybe with a GNS. That would be really nice, but at the moment it's just doing nothing essentially. So you got the basic GNS 430, and what you can do is you can actually pop this out. So if you click on the screen here where the hand is, you'll then get this pop-up, and I prefer using this pop-up rather than trying to click on the dials, because it's quite awkward to see where your cursor is. So I'm just going to go back to our normal view by pressing W, and then I'm just going to move this kind of here so I can clearly see what I'm doing. So I'm looking at my sim brief on Sim Toolkit Pro, and I'm looking at the flight planning segment. So we've got our departure runway, and then obviously down the bottom we've got our arrival runway, but in between we've got our SID, and we've got our star, we've got transition and an approach for our arrival. Like I said, I may do something different on there, but I'm looking at these and I'm looking at the waypoints. Okay, so I'm going to come back over to Xplane, and we're going to put in our flight plan. So some of the functions is similar to the G1000. It's just obviously on a very small, very basic scale, and you don't really have much of a visual. So we're going to click on flight plan, and as you can see, it's showing us the waypoint of where we currently are. If you've already got a flight plan installed in here, it may be showing waypoints. All you need to do is go to menu, scroll down to delete flight plan, and then delete flight plan. I don't have one in here, so I don't need to delete anything. And what we're going to do is we need to move over to our flight catalog. So similar to the G1000, you've got active flight plan, and if you use the scroll mouse in the middle dial, not the outer one, it will then move over to your flight plan catalog. We then need to press the button to get our highlighter up, and then we can use the inner or outer wheel to scroll down, and we want to find EIDW EGGP 01. So that is our flight plan. We already know that because that's where we're departing from, that's where we're going to. And obviously when we did our sim brief download, we would have seen that pop up. Okay, we're going to click enter. So that is our flight plan loaded in here. However, it doesn't put in departure and arrivals. So if we click on flight plan now, we can see we've got our departure airports. We then got the first waypoint of the end of the departure, which essentially links into the first waypoint of the en route. To explain that in a bit more detail, we come back over here, so you can see LIAN-LI is the last waypoint on the departure, which links to the flight route Q37, and that's the first waypoint of it, and that's the last waypoint of it. So you've got like airways, like a taxi route basically in the sky, and the Q37 is what we're going to be flying along. That's the first point, that's the last point, that links into that, and that links out of it. Okay, so LIAN-LI is the first waypoint, so let me go back to Xplane, but we're missing the waypoints before that, and it's because it's not put in an arrival. Okay, and if we go down, if we press the middle mouse button and then we scroll down using the not the middle one, the outer one, if we scroll down, we have Mallard, which was the last waypoint on the en route, and then it's gone straight to the airport rather than having the arrival. Not a problem. All we need to do is we need to go back up to EIDW. We're going to click on this button here, procedure, and we're going to add a departure. So we're going to scroll down to departure, click enter. Now we know our departure is LIAN-LI 5A, so we're going to scroll down, find LIAN-LI 5A. There it is, press enter. We can now see it's showing us a little bit of a map, so that's where we currently are. We're going to be flying out, flying up to Dub, and then off to LIAN-LI. Okay, so we're going to click. We're going to, that was a mixture of pick and press, click. press enter. So if we now scroll up the way, so we can see that's where we currently are. We're going to be going at runway 28, and then the first waypoint is OE, then dub, then LIFY. Now it's showing 2 LIFYs. Sometimes it will do that. All you do is pick the one that hasn't got any distance on it and just clear. Doesn't always do that, but now and again it may double up on 2 waypoints when you're adding in arrivals and departures. So one more time, just going back just to summarize for that particular part. As you can see on here, so we got runway 28, OE, dub, LIFY, and then we go back into Xplane and we can see we've got runway 28, OE, dub and LIFY. So that is our departure all sorted out. We've got our en route. We can sort our arrival out whilst we're in the cruise, okay, rather than doing it now. Because you never know, things may change while we're in flight. We could spend 10 minutes sorting out a really nice arrival, and then we get told that we've got to land at a different runway. Okay, so we're going to click flight plan. Now what you can do, see down the bottom here you've got these 3 boxes and it says nav. If you go to the outer wheel, you can actually, the inner wheel, you can change from nav to the middle one, which shows you your route, and then if you go to the next one, you can also sort out your vertical navigation, and we're going to go through all of that on the arrival. Okay, you got your zoom in and out, so you can zoom obviously in and out. It's very basic, nowhere near as good as the G1000, but it does the job. You can kind of see a bit of a flight plan there. I personally just leave it on this. So let's close that down. Now that was quite a bit of a lengthy start on that particular part, but obviously it's quite important because if you never used this particular GNS, you're going to have no idea. Right, so we're now going to go back to our overhead panel. We've verified our route and put that in. We now need to go up to the inverters, so the very top in the power supply. We just need to turn inverters 1 and 2 on, and that will activate all of them. We then need to go down to VFF. We're going to basically turn all of these switches on, so VFF, VHF2, NAV2, ADF 1 and 2, gyro compass 1 and 2, and MRK. Once we've done that, we can come down a little bit and we want to turn on our position lights. That's the lights that's on the wings. So we've got a red light on the left hand wing and a blue light on the right hand wing. So that is our power up procedures done. The next thing we're going to do is our before start procedures. Now what I personally do on my before start procedures, if it's required, is do a better pushback. Now as you can see, I can't really go forward because this is the route that the vehicles are driving on, so I do need a pushback. And essentially we are going in that direction around here. You can see a plane now just about to head over to the runway, so we're kind of heading in that direction over there. Okay, so we want to push back with our tail being over here somewhere. So I'm going to go up to my plugins, I'm going to go to a better pushback. Now you can just pre-plan it and then call them, but you might as well just call them because the time that it takes the tug to get here anyway, we're at that stage almost. So we're going to start.
Please show me where you want to go.
Start plug pushback. I'm going to move down with my down arrow and turn the plane with my middle mouse button, and that's the direction that I want to be facing. Left click to place the green plane and then click enter.
Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
So the tow is going to be coming up now. We can go back to our overhead panel and we can do our before start procedures ready for when he gets here. So first thing we're going to do is put our fuel pumps on. So the fuel pumps are here. So we're going to turn on the left and right fuel pumps, and we're going to turn on our cross feed. We're then going to come across to the right, so we're going to turn on prop feathering. We're going to turn on IELU, and we are going to turn on the engine starting. Remember where these 2 buttons are because you'll be turning them off later, and also the cross feed. So now you've got all these on. We're then going to come down and we're going to turn on our anti-collision beacon. That's the light that's on the back sensor here.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
And that basically lets people around us know that we are going to be starting our plane up. So we'll let the tug get all connected up. The guy's going to jump out, do his bits and pieces, connect it up.
Winching strap and adapter in position. Release parking brake when ready to start pushback.
Right, so when we're ready, we can release parking brake. He'll do a little raise of the plane. We can do that now, actually, can't we? So we're just releasing parking brake. He's pulling that in. I do really like the better pushback animations of it. It just makes it a little bit more interesting to watch. So he's now connected.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
And we may start our engines. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that my throttle is all the way back. We're going to make sure our mixtures are all the way forward. And then what we're going to do, in the center column, you've got these 3 white boxes here. 3 white boxes. The bottom one, you want to left click and lift by holding. And then you can release your left mouse button. And then these are your starter buttons, left engine and right engine. So we're going to start our right engine. Just click it. Look over the right hand side, and then the propellers are going to twist and then start moving. And then in the center you'll see all of the right hand dials moving. Okay, we're then going to come back to our overhead screen and we're going to turn on the DH or the DC generator for our right hand side. That will also do the AC generator at the same time. And that's all going nicely. We can now do the left engine. So we're going to start the left hand engine, come over to the left hand side, see the blades twist and move. That's all looking good. And then we can go back up to the overhead panel and we can turn on the left DC generator, which will do the AC generator at the same time. So that's that all started up. If we now go back to, jumping around there, sorry. We now go back to
Operation
our
complete. Set parking brake.
center console. We can close down the cover. Right, parking brake. For anyone that doesn't know where the parking brake is, it's over on the right hand side. This little black lever here. It's off and that's on. So when it's up, it's on.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Obviously you can set that to a key binding or something on your controls, but that is where your parking brake is. Right, so now that we've got all the generators up and running, engines are running nicely, and better pushback has got us ready to go, we can do our after start procedures. So the engine cover or the engine start cover is down. We can come up to our overhead panel and engine starting, we can turn them back off again.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. Well, see you next time and have a safe flight.
Thank you. So hand signal will be on the right hand side. We'll check him out in a second. Windshield heat. It's on the right hand side, and you can see here windshield heat. You can't change the dials with your middle mouse button. You have to left click, hold, and then drag left or right to move them. So we're going to move that over to the right hand side. Windshield heat. We've now got our hand signal. Thank you, sir. We're not quite ready to go yet, but we're almost there. We're going to come back up to here and we're going to turn on our special equipment. So all of these buttons, radar, transponder, flight recorder and passenger advance, they all need to go up. We then come to our de-icing and turn on the ice detector. Then we can turn on passenger cabin lights and seat belt. And then turn off the fuel crossfeed. So that is our after start procedure. We're now going to be taxiing, so we're going to turn on our taxi lights by pushing them up. and better pushback guy has gone. We're just going to do our takeoff briefing with our co-pilot. We've done all of that. Flaps is this little lever here. Okay, 3 positions, 0 degrees, 18 degrees in the middle and 42 degrees down the bottom. We're going for 18 degrees for takeoff. This plane takes off really quick. Okay, you really can take this off in a on a short runway, so just be aware of that. It's a little bit of a shock when you think you're going to take a long runway and then suddenly it starts lifting. You could probably actually take off without any flaps, but that is the general position that we're going to go for. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come to our trim wheel, and this is the trim wheel here. We want it in the center. You may have a trim wheel setting on your controls or whatever you have. If not, it's this little dial here. You can move it up and down, so we want that in the middle. If I can get it back to the middle, please. There we go. It's a little bit finicky to get this going how you want. I'll tell you that now. So that is our trim wheel done. Our QNH, basically our pressure, you got your 2 different readings depending on which type you're using, and it's this little dial here. Again, you're going to hold your left mouse button down and move left or right to adjust it. The QNH at the moment is 2992, so we're going to put that in there. This is obviously our nav. This one here is for our course. Then you got the needle here as well. That's our altitude. We've got our speed. Now the speed is actually in kilometers rather than knots. So this is in kilometers, so that's obviously, that'll be 50, and then that'll be 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 kilometers per hour. But you do have a rough guide here to give you like 100 kilometers per hour is 54 knots. Once we have done our QNH, we're going to go back over to the right hand side. Very right hand side, you have got pitot heads. We're going to turn our pitot on 1 and 2, and then that's us ready to taxi. So let's get ourselves going. We're going to take off parking brake, give a little bit of throttle, and let's get ourselves going. It's quite a busy airport, this, a lot of planes around. If I just bring up the traffic global flight schedule, you can see it's like 700 flights coming in and out today, being Friday, and we've got a few planes that are departing or arriving roughly when we're going. We should be good. Kind of gone off my taxiway here a little bit. Should be on this little yellow line there. Sorry. Just looking at my other screen then and I drifted off there a little bit. Mars? No, we're not going to Mars today. Sorry. So yeah, so I'm hoping you guys are finding this useful. It took me a little bit of research to obviously learn this plane myself. So my way of repaying the people that have done the research for me is I'm now doing it for you guys, or hopefully doing it for you guys anyway. Right, so we're taxiing down B1. This is going to take us all the way to that plane that's going to head towards us. I hope, yeah, you're turning off. Yeah, it's going to take us all the way to, it's actually the start of runway 28 and 34, and it obviously go off in slightly different angles. That guy's taxiing pretty fast. Crikey, he's in a rush. Must be late for dinner. Right, we can see a Lingus plane there taking off. Potentially or just landed, I'm not quite sure. That's runway 28 he's on anyway. Let's see if he lifts off or turns off. Looks like he must have just landed. We've got a fly B plane in front of us. Taxiing, so we're going to be behind this guy, which is fine. Yeah, that Lingus guy is taxiing now. Brakes are quite sharp on this. It does do a little bit of a nobble. Right, we've got no planes coming into us on the right, so we're going to make our way to the stop short marker. We need E1, which is going to take us left to runway 28. We can see our flashing lights, 2 markers. We're going to go for the second one. We've got clearance, we just need to obviously wait for this guy to take off. And let's stick on our parking brake here. Coolio. Right, so we're going to do our before takeoff procedures now. So we've done a quick check with our co-pilots, we checked fuel, we've done our takeoff briefing, flaps are done, elevator trim's done, Q&H is done, and the pitot heat is on. We're going to turn on our landing lights, so we just need to go from taxi down to landing. Transponder is in the center right here. So we're going to turn our transponder on. Again, hold your left mouse button and move over to the right to turn it on. And our autopilot is this area here. So we're going to auto prime it. Auto prime it, that's not quite the word. We're going to prime it ready for autopilot. So we're going to hit the nav button. I'm going to hit vertical speed and we want to climb, let's go for 6.1. Okay. Now the autopilot switch is actually here. Autopilot and flight director is this switch here. If I flick it up, it'll turn it on, and it's obviously currently off. You can hotkey that. I've got that on my throttle quadrant, or you can just turn it on manually by clicking that. But our autopilot is ready to go. Plane has just come in to land, and the final thing before we take off is we want to make sure that our GPS is on GPS mode. So it's on VLOC at the moment, so we hit our CDI and now it's on GPS, and that's us ready to go. So we're going to double check, make sure there's no planes coming in. That plane is just taxiing, so there shouldn't be another plane coming in just yet. We can take our parking brake off and try and head in a straight line, please. Would be grand. We're going to do one last check, make sure there's no one coming in. We're all looking good. I know you can't do that in real life, you'd have to stick your head out, but it's kind of, yeah, you could probably do it. But obviously we would have ATC telling us if it was clear or not anyway. And we're going to do a rolling start. So that's it, guys, that is our before takeoff procedures all done. We're now going to take off. Slowly add in a bit of throttle. It is quite windy, so we're going to have to use our rudder quite a bit. Keep ourselves hopefully going in a roughly straight line. Like I say, this plane will take off pretty quick. There we go. So we're airborne. We are going to put gears up. There we are. Gears are up. And we're going to hit autopilot. So I've hit my autopilot button, which obviously you can manually do it by pressing the switch up here. And now the plane is currently flying to our first waypoint, which is 650, and then it's going to go from 650 to OE, or the waypoint OE, which is almost straight on. And that's it, guys. Now, one thing I have discovered is sometimes, for some reason, the speedo, speed dial here, it sticks. I've got no idea why. It's done it quite a few times now. All you need to do is come up to flight, go to edit failures, fix all systems, click done, click apply changes, and now it's showing our correct speed. Okay, we wasn't flying at 50 kilometers an hour. We're actually doing almost 240, 230, 240. Right, so that's us. We're in the climb. There isn't a setting for you to set the altitude so that it will then auto level off. You essentially have to watch your altitude dial, and then when you're at the altitude that you want to be at, you come down to the autopilot and you hit the altitude button and it will level off. Now you can obviously increase or decrease your vertical speed by moving this left or right. We're obviously in the positive at the moment, so we are climbing. We're not losing speed. We're doing 250 knots, 250 kilometers, I should say. So we're not slowing down and then ending up stalling. So I'm happy with that. I found that 6.1 seems to be a nice vertical speed for this particular plane. We can now put our flaps all the way up. The nose will drop, and you can see here vertical speed is going to drop down and then it's going to climb back up. It does that every single time, so don't panic. Our speed will pick up a little bit now because we've got rid of our flaps. You could have probably done that a little bit earlier, but I was just talking through a few things. And although I'm not going to be going through this as such, you can see we're heading here to this waypoint OE, and then it's going to spin round up to Dub and then off to Liffey. And that's it, guys. That is us flying. Now, SimBrief said our cruise altitude was 11,000. I'm going to take it up to, should we go for 7 or 8? Probably, yeah, I'm going to go for about 7 or 8,000. I'll just kind of clear the top of the clouds. Now, here's the thing that I have discovered with this plane, and I've discovered it in a few other planes as well, especially the Dornier. If you are cruising at maximum throttle, and you can see your torque here, if it's in the yellow or the red, it has a tendency to then start almost roller coaster riding. So the VS speed will go up and down, up and down. I've got no idea why. As I said, I'm not a professional pilot by any means. But one thing I do know is by reducing your throttle and your mixture a little bit to get everything into the green, so to speak. And I did mention this in the 172 to reduce your mixture and your throttle so it's all in the green. But when you reduce them, it doesn't do it. So I'm guessing that having maximum throttle and mixture in the cruise for too long causes a few issues. But we're still in the climb. We're just coming up to 6,000 feet. Everything's looking good. And I do like how the plane's dirty. I mean, it's a working plane. It shouldn't be clean as such. So that's kind of cool to see. Awesome. Right, so we can turn our landing lights off now. So we're going to put that into the middle position. Approaching 7,000 feet. I think just as I was about to say, we'll probably level off there. Some clouds have appeared. I think 7,000 feet will probably be alright. So we're going to go down to our autopilot just down here, and we're going to hit Alt. So we're now going to level off, and we will stay at, oh look at that, we're on 7,000 feet. That was pretty spooky how I managed to get it on that. Cool. So we're in the cruise, guys. This is it now. The flight plan is in here, as we already know. We're going from dub to LIFI. So let's look over on our Sim Toolkit Pro. So as you can see by this orangey red line, we took off here, we got to OE, we then done the right turn, we've just gone past waypoint dub, and we are heading over. If I just take off follow, I'm hitting on the wrong button. If I take off follow, so we've gone from the airport to OE, up to dub, and then we're coming right now to our next waypoint, LIFI, which is going to take around about 6.5 minutes, and then to Bacox, Bavud, Donax, Mullard, and that's where we're going to be changing our arrival waypoints to get us in, and we can do that now. So we're going to bring our throttle down because we're in the cruise and it's starting to do its roller coaster riding, as I mentioned earlier. We're going to reduce the mixtures a little bit, bring them down into the green, and then that should settle the plane. There we go, so it's all settled now. Yeah, I've got no idea why it does that, but if you forget to reduce your throttle and it starts going up and down, then you know why. Just reduce your throttle to around about 50% on your torque, and you should be good. Right, so flight plan, we're looking at our arrival. So this can seem a little bit complicated, but once you've done it a few times, it shouldn't be too bad. So we can see now we're at dub, we're heading to LIFI, we've got plenty of time, so there's no need to panic while you're doing this. We're going to hit flight plan, and we are going to use the outer wheel to scroll down because it's highlighted. If it wasn't highlighted, just press the middle button, and we know that we're going from waypoint Mallard. Oh, I've done a noob mistake there and I forgot to put me back in the plane. Sorry about that, guys. What you didn't see is my vertical speed was going up and down, because I forgot to reduce my throttle because it was up in the orange or the yellow. So I've reduced it so that my torque now is around about 50%. I've reduced my throttle back, I've reduced the mixture back a little bit as well, and got that to around about the torque around about 50%, and that's balanced it all off. Sorry about that, I completely forgot to switch back over to the plane. I was showing you some brief. Anyway, right, so going back to our GPS. So let me come back out of that. So this is our current waypoints we're on, so going from dub to LIFI, and what we want to do is hit flight plan, make sure that it's highlighted by pressing the middle mouse button, and then go to the outer wheel and then scroll down, and as you can see, the last waypoint on here before Liverpool is Mallard, and it's at a completely different bearing. So I'm going to remember to go back to plane, but if we look here, so we've got Mallard over here, but then we want to get to Liverpool, and that's going to take us on a direct line from Mallard to the runway, but we want to kind of come in a little bit straighter. So what we're going to do is we are going to manually add in some waypoints here, and it is really simple, guys. There's no need to panic about this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to hit procedure. So we already know that we can add in a departure, but we can also do an arrival, and we can also do an approach. So the arrival is a set of waypoints before the approach, and the approach gets us in line with the runway. If I was in a big jet, I would definitely be doing an arrival. So that's your SIDS and your stars is your departure and your arrival, and then obviously in an approach. Now sometimes it might not have SID, or it might have not have a star. It may not have both of them. We already know from our flight plan on Sim Toolkit that the LIFI 5A was our SID or our departure, and TIPO 3A was our star. So if I now scroll up to arrival and click enter, we should be able to find Typo 3A. So using the outer wheel, scroll down, Typo 3 Alpha. So there we go. So Typo 3A is our star. So we're going to click enter, and then we're going to click enter again to load it in. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on flight plan, and I'm going to have a look at what waypoints have been added, because it may be giving us that little diamond shape that we don't really want to do. It may put us somewhere that we don't really want to go. So we're going to go down, mallard. Now it's added in another mallard, because mallard is the end of the en route, but it's added in the end of the en route. It always does this. Okay, so all we need to do is we need to delete this second one by clicking clear and enter, and then it's gone into Tipod. So Tipod is the next waypoint in our star. So if I go back to Sim Toolkit Pro and we have a look here, so mallard, the end of the en route, Typo 3A is the star, and Tipod is that waypoint I talked about. Now if we hide that, you can see that this waypoint up here is actually the D29H waypoint, which is this one here. So if I hide that one, we can now see that our route goes from Tipod into CF09. Okay, so that's what we kind of want to do. We don't want to be doing that weird going back up and then coming back down. We just want to come down. So I'm going to come back over to Xplane. Sorry for going back and forth, but it's kind of, I can see it both without having to go back and forth, but you guys can't see what I'm talking about. So what we want now is we want our arrival, or our approach, sorry, for EGGP. So what we're going to do is we are going to click on procedure again, and we're going to move up to approach. We're going to click enter, and we want the RNAV09 GPS, because we're not doing an ILS landing. Okay, we could do, but we're going on an RNAV approach. So RNAV09 GPS, click enter. Now if I'm completely honest, right, you can pick ILS 9, you can pick LOC 9, you can pick RNAV 9. You're kind of going to go in roughly the right direction. It's just going to give you a different waypoint from what you're going to be seeing for this particular one. Okay, but I would say if you was in a jet and you had auto landing, then obviously ILS is going to be the best option. So we're going to pick RNAV09 GPS. We're going to click enter. We're going to do vectors in, so we're going to click enter. And now it's given us our waypoint, so let's click enter for load. Don't activate, otherwise you're going to go direct to that waypoint. We want to click load. Now when we go to flight plan and we scroll our way down the wheel, so we got the mallard, we got the Tipod. Now what this does is it gives you an approach and some waypoints. We got Aboksu, Lebexi, runway 9, and then the hold after that. Now here's the thing, and I don't know why it does that. When you add in an approach, it leaves the airport waypoint, EGGP as an example, in between. Okay, here's the way that you go about this. Highlight EGGP, click clear, click enter, and then what that's going to do is the waypoints now will go from Tipod into the approach, which is IBAXU, and then on from there. Now what you could do is you could leave it in, and then once you got to Tipod and it's saying Tipod to EGGP, you just move it down to Abaku and hit this button here, which will then send you to that waypoint. Okay, but we won't do it. We'll do it the easier way of just getting rid of it so it's not in the way. And that's it, guys. That is your flight plan done. So we're currently at Backox, and if we close the flight plan down, so we're heading to Batox, which we're going to get there in 1 minute 30 seconds, and then after that we're going to go to Bavud. distance of 11 miles, and then Donax 31, Malud 13, and that is it. That is our flight plan. We can sit back and relax. However, there's always one more thing, isn't there? Always one more thing. How do we get our plane down? When do we bring our plane down? These are the questions that I asked when I first started flying planes. I had no idea. Like, when you fly, as an example, the 737 or the 767, and you've got your flight plan all sorted in, it does all of the calculations and it will auto climb and descend for you. This doesn't. All you have, let me just move that out of the way, sorry. All you have is your vertical speed up and down. Okay, you do have an approach button. If you've got an ILS frequency, you can put in an approach, and that will line you up and bring you along the guide slope. It's not a auto landing function, but it will assist you with getting yourself lined up and on the right line, so to speak. But as far as going up and down, all you have is your vertical speed up and down and your altitude to hold the altitude that you want to be at. This is where we need to do some calculations, guys. Right. Now I know if I was to come on to my Avi tab, which obviously you guys may not be able to do this, and I go into EGGP and click enter, I know that we're going into runway 9. The ILS frequency is 11.75, so I would put that into here, into the frequencies on here. Okay, so you basically change the dial. Oh, if I just get myself lined up so you can actually see what I'm doing. Use these dials here to adjust. The inner one does the small numbers, the outer one does the big numbers, and then you click this button here to change it over to the opposite side. So you can do your ILS frequency. The dial in the middle here, if I can get myself at an angle that you can see, let me just hide the yoke by pressing Y. This here, we can set our compass, so we want this arrow pointing up. We know that our course is 87 degrees, so I can set this to 87 degrees, which is around about there. Or is it that way around? Oh, that's a good question, you know. I've always done it this way, so that's the way I'm going to go. I don't know why that other end's all pointy, but that's what I've always done. And I always turn the course to the same as well. So if I need to go on heading mode on the autopilot for the landing, if I can get myself there. I'm all over the place here, aren't I? Sorry. Heading select rather than the GPS. Okay, so that's what I do. I set them on there. I will do a bit of research. I'm pretty sure I've done it right for the yellow one. The orange one, I know that's definitely correct, and I'm pretty sure that that's the direction that you set that on. That's what I've always used anyway. I've always done it that way around. So if I'm wrong, I do send my apologies. So we've done that. The altitude for this airport is 80 feet. Okay, but what you want to do is you want to work out, well, what altitude do I need to be at what particular waypoint for the approach? Now this is where Navigraph comes in really handy, because then you can have some charts. So if I click on this little button here, which you won't have if you haven't got a Navigraph account, I click on that and I click on approach. We're coming in on the our nav for runway 9. I click on that and then bring the map up a little bit. So we're coming in on these waypoints: Ibaku, Lebeki, runway 9, and then obviously landing on runway 9, and it's got that hold there that you may have seen. That's the waypoints we're coming in. So at Ibaku, I need to be at 2,000 feet. At Lebeki, that's where it's going to start descending at the quite usual 3 degrees down to land. Okay, so there I need to be 2,000 feet, and then we're going to be descending down to the runway touchdown. Okay, so I need to be at Abaku, or Baki, however you want to pronounce that. We'll call it Abaku at 2,000 feet. If you don't have these charts, you're going to have no idea. But what you will know is by going onto here. Let me do that one again. Going onto here is the elevation for that particular airport. Okay, it will also be on your Sim Toolkit. So if we go back to Sim Toolkit Pro and we go to Flight Summary, you've got your arrival details here, and that's why I love this bit of software, because you don't need Navigraph charts and all that sort of stuff to get this information. We got our altitude, 81 feet, the runway, the ILS, and the course. Okay, so we got that information there. But what we don't have is we don't know let's just go back to Xplane. We don't know the approach angles. Generally it will be 3 degrees, and generally it will be 2,500 feet if the runway is roughly sort of 0 to 50 feet, 100 feet maybe. Okay, I would generally say in 90% of cases you will want to put your lowest altitude at around about 2,500 feet. If you're too high, you're not going to see the runway. Obviously, well, you'll see the runway, but you won't see the lights for your glide slope unless it's night time. And if you're too low, you're not going to see them until it's too late, and then you're going to be almost no diving in. So 2,500 feet seems to be a nice number to go to anyway. So I want to be at Ibaxu, or I want to be at 2,000 feet at Ibaxu. Okay. Like I say, every airport's going to be slightly different. The waypoints are going to be slightly different. You may not have these charts, but if you know what the runway is, just add on 2,500 feet. Okay, from whatever it is, or 2,400 feet. Add on, as long as you're over 2,000 feet, you should be good. Okay. So we're going to go back to our GPS. We're going to pop it out, and we're going to go to the setting that you may have remembered on here. So, not that one, the middle wheel button. So the middle one shows us our route, and we can zoom in and out so we can see where we're going. Not great, but it does the job. And the next one along is our vertical navigation. Now, it took me a while to understand this, and I still don't know whether I'm doing it perfectly, but I have worked this out. So the target altitude, we need to press our middle mouse button first. I want to be at 2,000 feet. So it's the outer mouse button to move the cursor, and the middle mouse button to do changes. So I want to be at 2,500 feet. Okay. We're going for mean sea level. The target position, I want to be at 2,500 feet. So I don't need to do any distance before it. And it is at the waypoint that we said. I just go back to my flight planning. Was Tipod. Okay, so I want to be at 2,000 feet, 0 nautical miles before Tipod, and then Tipod is then going to be, or the next waypoint after that is then going to be the waypoint where I want to be at 2,500 feet. So I want to be there before that descent. So going back over here, we look at this. So Baku, we want to be at 2,500 feet. Lebeki, we want to be at 2,000 feet. So I want to make sure I'm at that altitude before then. I don't want to be getting there and panicking, because if I haven't set my descent rate correctly, I might end up overshooting the airport. So I want to make sure that I'm looking all good for that. Okay. I'm then going to go to vertical speed profile, and this is what you set. How fast do you want to descend? Do you want to descend at 100 feet per minute? Do you want to descend at 1,000 feet per minute? I generally go at around about 500 feet per minute for this particular type of plane. I don't know if it's correct or incorrect, but that is my choice. But what it'll do is, when you're changing this, it'll tell you what you need to be at now. Okay. So as I increase this, this will change along the route. And essentially what we're doing is, when this VSR gets to our vertical speed profile, that is when we're going to start descending. Okay, now I hope that makes sense. We set our target altitude, we set the target position of where we want to be at that altitude, and we set the vertical speed that we want to descend at. And then what this is doing now is setting our vertical speed that we are currently need to be at to reach that point. Okay, seems a little bit confusing, but again, once you've done it a few times, it makes sense. You don't have to do this. You can just guess and just think, oh, I'll descend now. And if you descend too quickly, you just level off and you fly at a lower altitude for longer. If you leave it too late, you end up doing a go around, or you kind of nosedive down. But this is the way that I personally use this. I don't know if it's 100% the correct way of doing it, but every time I've used it, it's worked 99% of the time. Okay, and if we go back to our, well, we can see on the mini map down the bottom here, we can see on the mini map that we're almost coming up to land. Our VSR saying we're at what we want to be at. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close that down. I'm going to go over to my autopilot, and I'm going to hit vertical speed. I'm going to put this down to 5.6. Okay, and we're going to start descending. I'm going to bring my throttle back to around about 50%, which is going to reduce our torque to around about 18 to 20%. And the reason being is, obviously, we don't want to be increasing our speed too much. Otherwise, we're going to end up doing the yo-yo with our vertical speed. You may need to, if you find that your speed's going up too much, just dropping your throttle back a little bit more. So I'm at about 45% on my throttle lever, and that seems to be fine. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to put up my mixtures back up to maximum. Okay, so we're now doing our before landing procedures. When we get to about 5,000 feet, we'll turn on our landing lights, and then as we get a little bit closer, we can put flaps and gear down and all those bits and pieces. Okay, so we're doing a little bit of a right turn now. Now it's now telling us we want to be at a vertical speed of 380, and that's actually decreasing, because obviously we're going down a little bit higher, because we're not doing 500 feet per minute, we're actually doing 5.6. So let's put this down now to go for 3.6. We'll keep a little eye on this. We're still going above what we want to be at, but that's perfectly fine. Okay, I'm kind of looking back and forth every now and again. I don't need to sit here and stare at it, but I'm just making sure that that is reasonably close to where I want to be at. So that's still going down, so I'm actually going to go down to -3 on that vertical speed, and then that should all be good fairly soon. Let's just check on our waypoints. So we're at Mallard, we're heading to Mallard, I should say. and then we're going to go to Tipod. Now, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the waypoint will break to the approach because we've taken out a waypoint. If that happens, just get ready. When you're heading from Mala to Tipod, and you're getting close to Tipod, just get ready. All you need to do is move the cursor down to the next waypoint that you want to be at, or you can go to approach because that's what we're doing, and then you just hit this little button here, okay, and that'll go to that particular waypoint. Okay, I will be at the ready for it just in case we need to do that. But I'm going to come back off flight plan. We can see our VSR still is coming down, so we're going to decrease this down to 2. Let's minimize you out of the way. So you can see we're at just approaching 4,000 feet. So we've only got 1,500 feet to go. And we've got quite a distance to go yet. So we're looking good on our descent. So we probably went a little bit too steep of a descent to begin with, but that's fine. It's all good. We can see it's going slow now. It's not going down as fast as it was. So it's still going down. So let's go down a little bit more. 1.5, and then that should bring us down at a nice speed now. And that's it really for your descent. It's not too tricky. Let's put our landing lights on. And we're looking good. Now we have got some really bad weather coming in. Let us go over to Tim Toolkit and look at them. All this blue and green is clouds and rain. Basically when it goes yellow and orange and red in some cases, that is really bad weather. You can see all the rain over here. It's nasty. So where we're heading into is it's going to be windy. I'm expecting some turbulence and I'm expecting a potential rough landing. Hopefully we don't have a wind shear, which basically is going to be horrendous for us in this plane. It's going to blow us all over the place. But we'll see. We got some wind turbines there in the water. You can see, look at these clouds, nasty, nasty, nasty. We're coming into some clouds now, but we're going to be descending below them, thankfully. So we're coming up, or we've just gone past 3,500. So not far to go now for our descent. We're going to be doing a little bit of a left turn in a second to Tipod, and then a right turn to our next waypoint. So vertical speed, see now it's starting to go up, so we're at that point where we're spot on with our descent rate at the moment, so that's all looking fine. We're heading to Tipod now. We're just doing left hand turn, or we've done the left hand turn, and we've got 10.7 miles to go, and I'm getting ready so that as soon as I get to Tipod, to make sure that it's going to go onto the approach and I don't just carry on going in a straight line, which sometimes can happen when you break a flight plan. It gets a little bit confused with what it's doing. It should be fine. It should be fine. When I did a test flight of this, I left the airport in, and once I got to Tipod, it went Tipod to Liverpool, and I just then hit approach, hit this button to head to the correct waypoint. So I know that's fine, but I normally would take out the airport as I shown you, so we should be good. It's been quite a long video this. I wasn't actually expecting it to be as long as it was, but obviously I went through the CSL's bit at the beginning, and then obviously it's a new plane, so I was having a quick talk about that. But again, if you are still here watching, thank you very much. I hope that it is informative, and if there's anything that you would like to know with this plane or the 172 or any other plane, then please let me know. If I don't personally know, I will go and find out. I only found out we was flying this after the multiplayer flight that we did yesterday, and I thought, well, I best go and learn this plane so that I can explain to you guys what to do. So we've got 6 miles, not too far to go. We can close that down. I'm just going to mute my microphone for a second because my phone's ringing.
Mic off. Mic on.
And I'm back. Sorry about that. Right, so 2.9 miles to go. We're in the bad weather, but thankfully it's not horrendous. It's just very cloudy. We've gone past the 2,500 feet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hit altitude, hold, at 2,200. So I went past the 2,500 because unfortunately I got distracted with the phone call. But yeah, it doesn't make too much of a difference. I could probably drop down to 2,000 feet and be perfectly fine. But we don't want to drop too low because otherwise it does make it awkward for the glide slope when we're coming in. So we should be coming up to our right hand turn in a second. Arriving waypoint, and then we'll see what happens now. Hopefully it'll go on to the approach. It's going to be a test, see whether it works or not. Right, so it hasn't worked. Perfectly fine, because all we're going to do is bring it up. We're going to move this down to approach, hit this button, and then it will automatically flick onto Ibaku, and the plane will hopefully do a turn. He says, oh, hit nav. Sometimes your GPS will come off. There we go, so we're turning now. So there's a couple little things. It's always good when something goes wrong, because it could happen with you guys. So if you're changing your approach on here and you get rid of a waypoint or you need to change it and you hit this button, just double check that the nav is still on. You could have hit that a little bit earlier before I did. So it would have automatically gone and the nav would have already still been on, but because I went past the waypoint, it was basically just going to be flying off on that heading forever and ever and a day. So what you could have done is, before I got to Tipod, is I could have selected the approach and then hit that button. It would have turned onto that heading straight away, and then obviously the nav would have stayed on. Okay, so a little bit of learning for us there. At least I know that in the future, if I ever change my approach, I need to make sure that if I do delete the waypoint out of there, I'm ready a second or two earlier. Right, let's close the flight plan down and let's move this back to our waypoints. So we're heading to Ibaku at the moment, a little bit below the glide slope, and then Lebeki we're going to be a little bit below the glide slope, so we're actually going to start probably descending around about this point here, but we're still going to be descending on the same glide slope. Okay, we're just going to be hitting it a little bit later. That's perfectly fine, not flying, fine. We will be watching out obviously for the red and white lights on the runway, the puppy lights as they are called. So we're at 200 kilometers per hour, which is around 108 knots. So I will be decreasing the speed to about 140, 150 kilometers an hour for landing. The runway we can see is just over here. You can see there's a plane. We can see the runway lights. Okay, so that's where we're going to be coming in. It's all looking good. So far quite a smooth journey, apart from the little waypoint issue. Now again, you could have not done any of that and just flown direct to the runway and then flipped onto heading mode, or just manually landed it. Okay, it's fairly straightforward to manually land this particular plane, or any plane to be fair. It's just nice to kind of get you, as certainly as a beginner anyway, it's nice to kind of get you lined up for the runway, so you've got plenty of time to adjust your height, adjust your angle, adjust your speed, adjust your flaps and all that sort of stuff, without having to worry about, oh, where am I turning here and where am I turning there. It can be a little bit of a distraction, I guess. Right, so we're not too far now for our next waypoint, and then we're going to be doing a left turn. Got about a minute 20 seconds to go. And then essentially we're going to be cutting across here, across the Mersey and into Liverpool. So we've got West Kirby here. Let's come out the screen now. We've got West Kirby. And then over here we have got North Wales. So up the top here you've got Prestatyn, you've got Holywell, is around about here I think. I think this is Holywell here. And then as you kind of come along you got Flint, Connors Key, sorry, Shotton, and then Chester. It's kind of around here somewhere, maybe a little bit further over. So yeah, a little bit of a tourist area this is. North Wales, Holyhead and all that sort of stuff. It's got all of the lights and the arcade areas and stuff like that. When I was a child living just outside of Liverpool, my parents used to come up here for holidays, and yeah, it's quite nice. But back to the flight, we're coming in to our arrival. So we've done our ILS frequencies, So what I can do now is on the autopilot is hit approach, and you can see here it'll say the altitude and glide slope will stay like that, and when we hit the glide slope path, the plane will start to descend. So basically when I get to just past Lebecki, it will then start descending. Okay, now you can do it manually by just looking at the puppy lights. So as you can see, I'm too low at the moment because I'm below the glide slope, because essentially I'm kind of underneath here. But as I get to the glide slope, oh, that's gone a bit blurry, sorry about that. Let me just zoom out a little bit. When we get to the glide slope, past Lebecki, I keep saying Lebecki, it's not, it's Lebki, we will start descending. Okay, so I'm looking at the puppy lights, and should it happen that I'm not descending, we can hit vertical speed and we can descend here, or we can turn off our autopilot and go down manually. Okay, so we're going to go flaps 18. Plane will do a little bit of moving around, and then it will sort itself out, and we are going to put the gears down. So we've got flaps down, we've got gears down, we have runway ahead, we have flappy lights that we can see. Doing a little bit of a left turn. As you can see now, the plane is descending, and the autopilot now says GS for glide slope. So we're on the glide slope. So we've gone past Lebecki, we're now on this glide slope coming down at 3 degrees. Not the group, but the angle, 3 degrees. And the wind here is horrendous, so this is going to be a bit of a rough landing, guys. Rougher than the 172 landing that we did in the tutorial, but I'm ready for it. And this has been quite a long journey of me waffling on, over an hour and a half. So I'll apologise for those of you that are still here. I'm sure most people have left already. But anyone that is here, thank you guys, it really is appreciated. Give me a thumbs up to let me know that you have enjoyed the video. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. I am going to be putting out more YouTube videos on various different planes. I'm going to be doing the Zebo 7300 next. I have done this as a private video for a couple of guys in the community a while ago, but I'm going to do a public one. And I'll probably go from Liverpool down to London because it's quite a nice short route. Enough time to waffle on, as I keep saying, in the middle, but enough time to get enough information across. And this wind is really bad here. Like I'm on autopilot, and you can see the plane rocking all over the place. So it's not going to be a smooth landing at all. Now obviously I could have gone into the comms and listened to ATIS if I'd put in the correct frequency, just to see what the oh wow, look at that. Yeah, to see what the wind is like, but we're just going to go for it. We've got 2 whites, 2 reds, so the glide slope is good. And as I get a little bit closer, I will be taking the autopilot off. Remember, the autopilot switch is this one here. I have got it bound to a button on my throttle quadrant. You can have it key bound to your keyboard if you don't have throttle and joystick. .400. So I'm going to take autopilot off, and the plane is now mine. I wish I hadn't have done that because the wind is really bad. Really, 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 really bad. So this is going to be a bit of a rough landing. Sorry, passengers. So I'm coming in, throttle back, and a butters. Wow. Okay, brakes on. Throttle is all the way back. Reverse is on. And let's come off here. Well, I can't believe I actually managed to pull off a butters landing there with with those winds. Let's put our parking brake on, and we're going to put on our taxi lights, and then parking brake can come off. Let's carry on with our taxi. And we'll head straight ahead of us towards the GA parking in Liverpool. I know this is not a GA plane, but that's where we're going to head. And the close down procedures is, well, it's really simple, like any plane. Just turn everything off. There probably is a set procedure, but the way I do it is I turn off the mixture so that the engine's cut out, and then just turn the switches off, and just working my way around the different areas. So I'm going to taxi down here, take a left, head into the GA area, which is just over here on the left side. And that's it, guys. So a successful journey, successful landing, which I'm really happy with. I shouldn't have landed on runway 9. I should have gone in for runway 27, the opposite end, because just looking at that windsock as I was going past it, I was flying with the wind rather than against the wind. So that's something that you would never do in normal situations, but we're not in normal situations. Right, flaps can go up. We're going to park over by our flying school, which is where I'm based out of for my tutorials. I'll either fly in or out of Liverpool for the rest of my tutorial flights. But we're here. Let's go back in and put on our parking brake. So for some reason my parking brake, I can turn it off, but I can't turn it on with my my button. I don't know why that's a thing. So yeah, all we're going to do now is turn off our mixtures, so the engines will cut out on themselves, and then go into the overhead panel. I'm literally just going to turn everything off. So turn the taxi lights off, position and anti-beacon, all these off. Remember, some of them don't go off. These can all go off. They can go off. They're already off. These can come off. And you want to turn them off, because if you leave them on and then you fly this plane again, some of them will stay on, which is really annoying. So I just turn everything off. Generators can come off, batteries can come off, inverters can come off. So everything now is as we started the plane. And then what I would then do is turn my mixtures not all the way up to about 60-70%, because otherwise if you forget that they're in that position and then you go to start your plane, or if you decide to start the plane with engines running, which some people will do, it won't start. You'll start the plane and the engines will cut out straight away, and all because these levers have been left in the cut off position. And that's it, guys and girls. Oh, let's turn our heating off. I know it's everything, the batteries and everything are off anyway, but let's turn that all off, and turn our pitot heat off as well. if I can hit the button. There we go. Right, so that's it, guys. That is the L-410. Like I said, it's a free plane. I will put a link in the description for that particular plane, and I'm also going to put a link into the description for the CSL files for anyone that needs that for the Xflight server. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that you have learned something, and hopefully for anyone that is using this particular plane in the future or using it for our multiplayer flight that we're going to be doing next week, you have a successful flight like I have just done. Other than that, stay safe, take care, and I shall see you soon. Bye bye.